and one on Thursday morning from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. And the purpose of these sessions will be to evaluate the agriculture industry, as well as the quality infrastructure that supports it, in order to develop a plan to implement the improvement of the quality infrastructure and the industry as we know it. So before we move on to today's proceedings, we want to take a photo of the presenters. So I would just ask if all of the presenters can open up their videos, if you are in a position to do so, so that we can take a screenshot of the presenters. Felicia, will you take the photo?
Yes, Rodney. I'm just waiting on people to put on their cameras. Just PS Ovid, Eileen Ovid. Okay. So I will take the shot now, and hopefully those who are not here, we can take at a later time. Once more into okay, thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you, everyone. So as we move into today's proceedings, I'd just like to lay down some ground rules. First of all, we would like all persons to have their microphones off while the presenters are speaking. We will not be taking questions during the presentation. The presenters may allow some time for questions after the presentation, but we will not be taking questions during the presentation in order to ensure that everything flows on time. Do we have the chat enabled, Felicia?
Yes, Rodney.
Okay, so we do have the chat enabled. So if persons have questions, you can type the questions in the chat and we will take note of all the questions that we have received. Okay, so moving on to the first set of remarks today. It's going to be from the chairman of the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards. Unfortunately, the chairman is not here today, and where he is not in an area where good internet is supported. So what the chairman has done is sent his remarks to us, and we will be reading out his remarks for him.
Good morning to all. It is indeed a great pleasure to welcome you as the Chairman of the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards, TTBS, which in collaboration with the CARICOM Regional Organization for Standards and Quality, the Ministry of Trade and Industry, the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries, NAMDEVCO, the Inter-American Cooperation on Agriculture and the Ministry of Health, Chemistry, Food and Drugs Division in hosting this workshop on promoting dialogue between the national quality infrastructure and the agriculture sector in Trinidad.
Hi, sorry about that, everyone.
Trinidad and Tobago. Quality infrastructure is a key component of national development and competitiveness. A well-coordinated quality infrastructure is essential for domestic markets and for products to gain access to foreign markets. For developing and transitioning economies, raising awareness of a country's national quality infrastructure and the application of standards can lead to a host of benefits, some of which include creating better, safer, and more sustainable products, increasing domestic commercial activity, and enhancing consumer protection. TTBS is involved with the CARIFORUM Economic Partnership Agreement Technical Barriers to Trade program with CROSCU. One of the core activities in this program aims at institutionalizing dialogue between national quality infrastructure institutions, regional quality infrastructure networks, and the private sector. In the case of Trinidad and Tobago, such a dialogue forum is being developed with the agriculture sector. TTBS has a number of agriculture standards in its portfolio, including requirements for labeling of fertilizers, labeling of pesticides, pesticides classification, pesticides packaging, and determining fertilizer content, to name a few. As part of our national standardization strategy, which defines the 3-year prioritization of our standards development work program, TTBS worked with several agencies, including those highlighted above, and others such as the Agricultural Society of Trinidad and Tobago, the Food and Agriculture Organization, and the Tobago House of Assembly to complete the standard for good agricultural practices for fresh produce. Work on standards for quality and grading of fresh produce has begun. At the regional level, TTBS under the ambit of CROSCU is currently the Technical Secretariat for the development of the regional standard for the labeling of pesticides. Additionally, the TTBS, along with other CROSCU member states, are participating in a focal group for agriculture and food for a project jointly implemented by the Organization of American States, OAS, and PTB, the German Metrology Institute, to assist national standards bodies to leverage their technical competencies in metrology, standardization, accreditation, and conformity assessment for the circular economy. As government, through the Ministry of Agriculture, seeks to develop the agriculture sector and inter alia increase local food production, TTBS willingly supports a national dialogue forum between the quality infrastructure and agriculture. The timing of this event is critical, as the country, along with the rest of the world, is in the midst of a global pandemic and therefore has to increase its food security and national resilience, which concomitantly necessitates the development of its quality infrastructure. This represents a great opportunity to develop the quality infrastructure that is relevant, current, and meets the specific needs of the agriculture sector. At the Food Systems Dialogue hosted by the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries and the United Nations in June, one of the presenters highlighted 5 areas of importance at the UN Food Summit in September. These include 1. Issues of accessing safe and nutritious food for all. 2. The need to shift to sustainable consumption patterns. 3. To boost nature-positive production. 4. To advance equitable livelihoods. And 5. Build resilience to vulnerabilities. These themes were again also echoed in some form during the recently concluded Caribbean Week of Agriculture Virtual Forum, All of these have quality infrastructure implications, whether it be food safety considerations, such as specifications for pesticide residues, or certification schemes to give greater confidence to customers on the quality of products being produced, thus increasing the market access for producers. The intent of this forum is to facilitate collaboration and to identify services required by the agricultural sector to achieve its goals. These discussions will inform the development of a draft action plan for the TTBS and other stakeholders to meet the demands of the agricultural sector. It is worth remembering that quality is everyone's business and that quality matters in national development. It is also notable that while TTBS has a leading role to play in the development of a quality-conscious society that is more aware and embracing of the value of standards and quality in everyday life, it is not the only one with such a role. The government of Trinidad and Tobago, through MTI and TTBS, would have recently launched the Building a Quality Culture in Trinidad and Tobago project through the funding of the Caribbean Development Bank under the CSME Standby Facility. The Building of a Quality Culture in Trinidad and Tobago project is a key component of Trinidad and Tobago's national quality policy, which is being implemented by the Cabinet-approved National Quality Council, chaired by the Ministry of Trade and Industry. This project focuses on three sectors: 1. Food and beverage manufacturing, 2. Business professional and ICT services, and 3. Agriculture and agro-processing. During implementation, a public awareness and sensitization program, a quality intelligence program, and a continuous learning and improvement program will be developed and implemented so these two projects can leverage synergies to achieve their objectives. In closing, and on behalf of the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards Board of Directors and staff, I take the opportunity to welcome all of you and hope that your participation in this forum will be both informative, productive, and enjoyable. Thank you.
Okay, so I would like to give thanks to the chairman of the board of directors. He would have been here if he could have been. So we do thank him for being able to send in his remarks so that we could benefit from it. Just give us 2 minutes before we proceed to the next presentation, please.
Okay, cool. Let me get I don't know you for folk. Okay. The reader wants to know if you got allergies. Keely.
What is, I don't know you. If I'm itchy, that's my business.
You're damn right. I can't even itch when I want to. Come on.
Right? Okay, let's fix it. I don't know you.
Okay, the answer.
Rodney, your mic is off.
Okay, sorry, I was just saying that someone's mic seems to be on. So just give us 1 minute. We will be with you in a minute as we continue the presentations. Okay, sorry about that, everyone. Just trying to sort out some technical difficulties, but we will be continuing with the program now. So, first up, we have Mr. Derek Omar, the CEO of the CARICOM Regional Organization for Standards and Quality, also known as CROSSQ. Mr. Omar is the Chief Executive Officer of CROSSQ, headquartered in Barbados. CROSSQ is the regional quality infrastructure development institution founded by 15 member states of the Caribbean Community, or CARICOM. Mr. Omar is focusing on modernizing and accelerating the preparation, adoption, and application of regional standards, metrology, accreditation, and conformity assessment systems to increase trade, boost industrial efficiency and effectiveness, advance equality conscious culture among citizens, and further the cause of the CARICOM single market and economy. He was the past chief executive of the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards and a past director of Exportiti, Occupational Health and Health Agency of Trinidad and Tobago, and COPANT, the Pan American Standards Organization, as well as ASTM International USA. So I would like to welcome Mr. Omar to give his remarks.
Thanks very much, Rodney. Mrs. Allen Ovid, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Trade and Industry. Ms. Susan Sherland, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries. Mr. Lokpat, CEO and Director of the Trinidad Bureau of Standards, and all other protocols being observed. Thank you all very much for attending this session here this morning. Today, we launch a very important milestone in our implementation of the 11th European Development Fund Economic Partnership Agreement, Technical Barriers to Trade Program, which we fondly call the 11th EDF EPA TBT program. This milestone will see us embarking on a process to aid in the inclusion and expansion of quality systems and procedures into the agricultural sector in Trinidad and Tobago through this process of national dialogue. National dialogues are being used in this project as a means to identify and address some of the shortfalls in quality procedures in specific industries so identified by individual member states. It is intended that through this process, you will get to unpack and examine many quality-related issues that have in some way impeded the further advancements of products in your agricultural sector. In the past, under a project funded by the German National Metrology Institute, PTB, we have used these dialogues in countries ranging from the Bahamas to Haiti and St. Vincent and the Grenadines, with a view to examining how the introduction of standards, measurement systems or metrology, accreditation of laboratories, as well as testing, inspection, certification, and quality promotions can help in boosting quality infrastructure in the identified national priority industrial sector. By applying these benchmarks, we've been able to pinpoint the quality services demanded of the country's National Bureau of Standards and related industries by that industry. We do this with a view to responding and thereby helping to create a stronger national quality infrastructure with the National Bureau at the helm, working hand in hand with other quality-related institutions in the sectors targeted towards achieving common identified quality-related goals. This process has also served as an awareness-raising tool for industry and many national sectors to become informed and educated on just how the addition of quality parameters, whether it be management systems, standards, certification of professional or products, or upgrading of national measurement systems, can help boost productivity and competitiveness and improve the overall product and service offerings. With funding through the European Union and with the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards on board, alongside CROSSQ, PTB, and the Dominican Republic's Institute of Quality, INDOCAL, as well as quality infrastructure institutions in the agricultural sector of Trinidad and Tobago, this 11th EDF IPA TBT project views the strides being taken here today as contributing to the overall goal of reducing the barriers to trade within the region and with the rest of the world. We recognize that in this instance, trade in products within the agricultural sector has the potential to increase foreign exchange earnings and secure food safety and food security for our countries. The timing of this national dialogue in quality infrastructure in agriculture is critical, therefore, as the country, along with the rest of the world, is also in the midst of a global pandemic and therefore has to increase agricultural production and concomitant development of its quality infrastructure. This represents a great opportunity to develop a quality infrastructure that is relevant, current, and meeting the specific needs of the agricultural sector. Increased food production is one of the strategies being developed by the agricultural sector in Trinidad and Tobago, and this project will support the country to meet its goals through the improved dialogue between quality infrastructure and agriculture. In addition, this dialogue will increase awareness and understanding with the sector of the importance of standards and of quality to business competitiveness. If you participate and fully engage in this exercise over the next few days, we can all come away with a practical action plan to address quality infrastructure challenges in agriculture in Trinidad and Tobago, and with a view to tackle the issues that need quality interventions. We therefore implore you to give up your best to help our facilitators identify your needs and pinpoint the resources that can address them. In this regard, the acronym of TEAM, Together Each Achieves More, will be extremely applicable. I wish you all a very fruitful deliberation and success in your outputs that will hopefully guarantee equally successful outcomes, both for the agricultural sector in Trinidad and Tobago and the CARIFORUM EU 11 EDF project. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us here today and in this intervention, and we look forward to your continued participation this week. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Omar. So our next speaker is Dr. Sabine Grenier, and I hope I pronounced that correctly. She is representing the German Metrology Institute, PTB. She is the PTB project coordinator for the 11th EDF EPA TBT project. She has been working at PTB since 9 years and working for the last 12 years and working since 2012 with the Caribbean region. She's also worked from 2017 to 2019 with the Metrology Networks APMP and APLMF in the Asia Pacific. Welcome, Dr. Grenier, and please, you have the floor.
Yeah, a pleasant good morning to everyone. So it is my pleasure to give some remarks in the name of PTB at this National Dialogue Forum between the national quality institutions and the agricultural sector in Trinidad and Tobago. So PTB is the National Metrology Institute of Germany, and within its Department for International Cooperation, PTB is supporting, and now already since more than 50 years, is supporting developing and emerging countries in setting up an internationally recognized quality infrastructure. And such a quality infrastructure is essential for our daily lives, for reliable health care, for environmental protection, and also for free, fair, and safe trade. And a project aiming to support an internationally recognized quality infrastructure is the 11th EDF IPA TBT project, which is funded by the European Union and implemented by PTB together with its partners CrossQ and Indocal. And this project aims to contribute to the integration of CARIFORUM into the world economy by supporting quality infrastructure institutions and also by promoting communication between quality infrastructure institutions and their stakeholders. So therefore, the project is organizing national dialogue fora within CARICOM countries on topics that have identified by the countries as their priority. And Trinidad and Tobago has chosen the agricultural sector as the government views this sector as an integral component of a sustainable development plan for the country. And the goal of this national dialogue is to increase the awareness of the importance of quality, to increase the understanding of quality infrastructure, to provide guidance to quality infrastructure institutions, to structure its services to match the needs of the agricultural sector, and finally to develop a concrete action plan that will be implemented within the next 12 months. So yeah, I would like to thank everybody who contributed and contributes to this event. And I wish everybody an interesting session and fruitful discussions. So thanks to all.
Thank you very much, Dr. Grenia. Next on the agenda, we will be moving to our keynote address from the Acting Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Trade and Industry, Ms. Eileen Allen Ovid. Ms. Eileen Allen Ovid is the Acting Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Trade and Industry, and assumed office at the ministry in July 2020. She has an extensive career of over 25 years in the public service. Most of her public sector career has been at the Ministry of Planning and Development, where she has served at various levels and in several departmental areas. Her last appointment being Deputy Permanent Secretary. Ms. Ovid has a keen professional interest in project management, developing policy, and innovation. So welcome, Ms. Ovid.
Good morning. Mr. Derek Lukpat, Executive Director, TTBS, Mr. Derek Umar, CEO, PROSCU, Dr. Sabine Grenier, Natural Metrology Institute of Germany, management and staff of the TTBS, distinguished guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. It is a pleasure to take part in this national that seeks to strengthen partnerships among the agricultural stakeholders, national and regional quality infrastructure institutions, and government ministries and agencies. The Bureau of Standards must be commended for this initiative, which is timely as the government seeks to develop and expand opportunities within the agriculture sector, which is at the forefront of the country's diversification efforts. It is noteworthy that the focus of the week's sessions is on the importance of national quality infrastructure and how it can enhance the development of the agricultural sector. The objectives of this national dialogue are strategically aligned with Trinidad and Tobago's National Development Strategy, Vision 2030, and the recently developed roadmap to transition the country towards a more diversified economy that produces a broad spectrum of export competitive, high-value goods and services. In this regard, the government has identified agriculture and agro-processing, as well as fish and fish processing among 7 economic areas for the establishment of new business clusterings. The roadmap also identified the need to protect the country's food supply through expansion of the agricultural sector. Food security must be embraced at all costs, and the government has mandated that the expansion of this sector must go hand in hand with the necessary food support programs that target the most vulnerable in society. Fortunately, we are in a position to link the national quality policy with the roadmap seamlessly, and this will certainly be beneficial to all involved. And this national dialogue is indeed a timely intervention that seeks to address the vital areas outlined in the roadmap. The specific focus of the dialogue on the overarching necessity for developing the country's national policy can be found in both our national quality policy and trade policy, which identify that a robust national quality infrastructure is integral to 1, industrial development, trade competitiveness in global markets, the efficient use of natural and human resources, food safety, health, and the environment. More specifically, agriculture, agro-processing, fish and fish processing have been identified as key sectors that require significant quality infrastructure support. When we speak of the quality infrastructure, or NQI, we are referring to the entire ecosystem of public and private institutions, as well as the legal and regulatory frameworks and practices that establish and implement standards, accreditation, metrology, and conformity assessment. It has been identified that despite the large local demand for agricultural produce from crops and livestock, suppliers are not able to take advantage of the demands in US, Canada, Latin American, and UK markets. Also, with the globalization of production and supply and retail chains, ensuring the safety and quality of products is paramount. In recent times, there have been increased health concerns due to the incidence of various types of diseases and toxins entering the food chain that would have led to the introduction of stringent standards and conformity procedures, particularly in the area of agro-food exports. Exporting countries must therefore be able to acquire the capability to conform to requirements in terms of quality, safety, health, and the environment if they are to participate fully in global markets. Accordingly, in our national context, gaps and challenges must be addressed in terms of enforcement or updating of existing laws, standards, and the availability of testing and certification facilities to enhance compliance with technical standards to promote international consumer confidence and gain access to regional and global value chains. In order to increase our exports of primary agricultural products, there must be systematic upgrading, moving from low value added segments, activities to higher value added activities. This would create avenues for tapping into regional and global value chains and accessing new export markets within the wider Caribbean, Central and South America, and Asia. Research has shown that in the input segment of the global value chain for agriculture, Trinidad and Tobago's endowment of natural gas has allowed it to be a strong producer of ammonia, urea, and some macronutrients of fertilizer. However, apart from the ammonia and urea inputs, Trinidad and Tobago has weak participation in the agriculture input segment. Trinidad and Tobago also possesses a comparative advantage in the processing segment. Notwithstanding this, there exists room to expand productive capacity and diversify exports in the agro-processing industry to improve foreign exchange earnings. This would undoubtedly require transforming the country's export specialization. In this way, upgrading the attendant gaps in the national quality infrastructure is viewed as crucial for inducing the structural shift. There are several initiatives ongoing to expand and diversify production, and some of these include the Moruga Agro-Processing and Light Manufacturing Industrial Park, which is one of the early interventions by the government to bring rural areas into the productive sector while expanding exports in the food, beverage, and manufacturing sectors. Further, the recently launched Export Booster Initiative includes key programs such as the certification program for food and beverage standards and product compliance, and labeling and product testing support. We also note that in order to address the challenges brought on by the global pandemic, the government introduced several policy measures with the following expected outcomes: increased production to reduce dependence on imported food and inputs, development of a more technologically advanced agriculture system to increase the availability of domestic food supply, and strengthened linkages along the food value and distribution chains to make more locally produced food available within the country. As I mentioned, the ecosystem of the NQI, TTBS's partnership with the CARICOM Regional Organization for Standards and Quality, CROSQ, is critical for the development of the agricultural sector. And it is very heartening to see CROSQ is actively involved in this dialogue. Ladies and gentlemen, since the launch of the National Quality Policy, the government has been implementing several programs and initiatives with the National Quality Policy at the core. The support of an efficient and effective national quality infrastructure is necessary to ensure the production of quality goods and services. Therefore, it is important that institutions with responsibility for accreditation, standardization, and metrology and quality services for conformity assessment meet international standards. As I close, I would like to again thank the TTBS once again for facilitating this extremely essential workshop. The level of participation thus far demonstrates the agriculture sector's commitment to playing an essential role in the nation's path to economic recovery. The partnership with the CROSQ and other ministries and agencies can only bear fruit. We wish to encourage such synergies toward sustainable development. But what we must also bear in mind is that the feedback and lessons learned in this workshop will not end at this event, but rather be put into much needed action in the form of a robust action plan. I trust that any actions that are set out in meaningful ways will result in measurable and sustainable outcomes in the medium to long term to ensure growth and sustainability in the agriculture sector. To our participants here today and over the next few days, I encourage you all to take advantage of this transformational opportunity and apply the knowledge gained today and throughout the week to your work and livelihoods. It will be well worth the effort. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Allen Ovid. Next on the agenda, we will be having an address from Ms. Susan Sherlin. Ms. Sherlin is currently the Acting Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries. In 2018 and 2019, she held the position of Deputy Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Community Development, Culture and the Arts. Ms. Susan Sherlin is a former Secretary General of the Trinidad and Tobago National Commission for UNESCO. Prior to that, she was employed at the Institute of Marine Affairs, where she worked in the areas of environmental education, project management and planning, and public relations and marketing, both in the Information Center and in the Technical Advisory Services Department. She also served as coordinator of the IME's Caribbean Marine Studies Journal. Ms. Sherlin holds a Bachelor of Environmental Studies degree with a focus on environmental education and a master's degree in regional planning and resource development, both from the University of Waterloo, Canada. She holds certificates in public relations from the University of the West Indies Institute of Business, in marketing management from Reutech, in multilateral diplomacy and in green diplomacy from the United Nations Institute of Training and Research, UNITA. Ms. Sherlin has as her motto, onward and upward, encouraging persons of all walks of life to continuously persevere, in the positive activities that will make our country a better place. Welcome, Ms. Sherlin.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ramnath. I didn't realize that bio was provided. Thank you so much. Good morning, colleagues. Sorry for coming in a little late. I was actually at another meeting. It's still going on, but I'm pleased to be here to share some ideas and some thoughts with you from the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries. Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Trade and Industry, Ms. Eileen Ovid. Nice to see you. Thanks for your address. Chairman and members of the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards, Mr. Derek Luckpat, Executive Director, and others at the TTBS. I'm not sure whether Mr. Umar from the CARICOM Regional Organization for Standards and Quality is present, but good morning. Colleagues from ICA, UTT, all the relevant organizations, representatives, ladies and gentlemen, nice to see you. Allow me to apologize on behalf of the Minister of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries, Senator the Honorable Clarence Ramarat, for his unavailability at today's workshop. The Honorable Minister is presently engaged, as you know, in the national budget debate in Parliament, but he sends his best wishes to the organizers of this successful session. I'm sure it will be successful. Hopefully, he will be able to participate in future fora. The Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries' role has always been viewed as a pivotal one. And with the advent of COVID-19 pandemic, it has thrust the ministry to the forefront, as there's now a greater demand on us to put the requisite systems, standards, policies, and training in place to build a robust agricultural sector in Trinidad and Tobago. So how has the ministry been able to respond to the challenges that we now face? Prior to the pandemic, actually, several initiatives were already in train with the intention of moving the sector to a place where our products and services will be recognized globally. This will result in tremendous marketing opportunities for our nation's farmers at both the domestic and international markets. One such initiative is NAMDEFCO's collaboration with the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards on good agricultural practices. The collaboration between Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards and National Agricultural Marketing and Development Corporation, NAMDEFCO, on good agricultural practices, or GAP, as we so fondly know it, has brought tremendous benefits. TDBS, as a national standards body, leads the development and publication of the Trinidad and Tobago Standard for Good Agricultural Practices, in particular, fresh produce requirements. This is known as TTS 648-2020. Over the years, significant developments have been achieved for the program. In 2013, the Interim Steering Committee for the Development of the National Good Agricultural Practices Program was instituted. Subsequently, in 2014, a strategy workshop was co-hosted with the FAO, which produces reports, work plans, and charted the way forward. In 2016, NAMDEFCO introduced the NGAP as a public sector investment program project under the Farm to Table initiative, which is quite successful to this day. In 2017 and 2018, through an MOU between NAMDEFCO and ICA, a gap analysis on the upgrade of the farm certification and monitoring program to the national gap certification was conducted, and the proposal of a regional gap study tours was presented. This steering committee was reintroduced in 2019, where a study tour was done to Costa Rica, along with the development of a roadmap and terms of reference for the steering committee for the National Good Agricultural Practices Program and the draft National GAP Standard. In 2020, a draft standard was completed and the development process was done, which was approved and published. The NGAP implementation plan was developed, and a governing structure for the certification scheme was proposed. So a lot of developments took place. Final approvals for the institution of the steering committee and the nomination of a scheme owner for the National Good Agricultural Practices Certification Scheme are currently being sought from Cabinet through the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries. These were key factors that will determine the implementation of the steering committee and which will have oversight of all the activities, and the scheme owner will be responsible for the execution of the certification program, which will lead to the upgrade of the NAMDEFCO Farm Certification and Monitoring Program. So the local distribution channel for fresh produce and agro-processed or value-added products are available at several outlets throughout Trinidad and Tobago, within which produce certified according to the TTS 648-2020 will also be available. These range from fresh produce markets, supermarkets, restaurants, fast food outlets to other places that provide packaged or processed fresh produce. There's also the medium to long-term goal of regional and international exports. So we're getting there with good standards with our produce in the markets. As it relates to the fishing industry, Trinidad and Tobago, by virtue of its geographic location and comparatively easy access to South American, US, and European markets, has long been identified as a strategic Caribbean hub for unfortunately, illicit trade in goods and commodities. In fact, this is the topic that I'm at in another meeting at this point in time. But it's very serious and we've got to regulate this. Preliminary data collected by the Fisheries Division of Trinidad and Tobago suggests that foreign fish passing through the ports of Trinidad and Tobago are known to far exceed 185,000 tons collected for tuna and tuna-like species alone, and that was just in 2020. This translates to significant movement of financial resources, lending itself to the use of the fishing sector as a cover for other illicit activities. In this regard, Trinidad and Tobago is currently seeking to update our existing legislation of over 104 years. So, I mean, the previous fisheries legislation was 104 years ago. So we've done a lot of work to upgrade and update this legislation and to implement measures to address our international obligations as a flag, port, coastal, and market state. Trinidad and Tobago signed on to the Port State Measures Agreement to prevent, deter, and limit these illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing activities in August 2019. And then after extensive work by the Fisheries Division and other partners like Maritime Services, Customs and Excise, and Trade and Industry Ministry and others, a new fisheries management bill was laid in Parliament in October 2020. The bill will provide for the strengthening and incorporation of fisheries management and international obligations in relation to its antecedent drafts. It will allow for broader responsibilities, jurisdiction, and powers in relation to fisheries management by the state and its representatives. It will also create a legal basis for compliance by stakeholders. It will establish a legal framework for the state to fulfill its obligations as a flag, port, coastal, and market state in accordance with the existing international framework for fisheries management and related sectors. And it will establish a legal basis for the state to collect revenue through application fees for authorizations, licenses, and permits, as well as penalties that are significant in determining or in deterring illegal, unregulated, and unreported fishing. The ministry is of the view that once a bill comes law, and that will be maybe early next year, it will directly address the perennial issues which continue to plague the industry, including making it a viable sector for those who depend on it for their livelihoods. With regard to the poultry cottage industry, the poultry cottage processors, or commonly referred to as pluck shops, employ on average between 10 to 15,000 persons and process about 30 or 300,000 to 800,000 chickens produced a week in this country. You know, we are a chicken-loving country, so it's quite important, these pluck shops. It also has the potential of becoming a model industry for other regional jurisdictions. Furthermore, data has also shown that between 35 to 40% of all poultry produced on an annual basis are marketed and sold through our local pluck shops. Over time, the ministry has seen a steady increase in the number of pluck shop operators, especially in the rural areas of Trinidad and Tobago. However, there's need for established practices of food safety and hygiene in this industry. In this regard, the ministry is currently collaborating with the Food and Agriculture Organization and the University of the West Indies, along with the Ministry of Health, in developing a policy and standards to regulate the poultry cottage industry. The policy will be centered on areas such as improved facilities and management, slaughtering and packaging processes, and hygiene practices. It is our expectation that once these guidelines are instituted, it will improve the overall operation standards of the industry, allowing consumers to trust the management practices. This will evidently result in pluck shops becoming a more commercially viable entity. And finally, for farmers and training, it's quite important that we conduct a lot of training exercises. Training and certification of our nation's farmers continue to be a major priority of the Ministry of Agriculture, despite the challenges in the COVID-19 pandemic. Our extension officers at both the Regional Administration North and South offices, along with the extension training and information services we provide, they regularly provide the requisite training to improve the techniques of farmers and interested persons. Certification programs provided by the extension services include crop, livestock, and fish farming management, which give successful persons the ability to access loans from the Agricultural Development Bank at favorable interest rates for them to improve their holdings to make it profitable. Additionally, the Agro Incentive Program, which was launched in October 2018 by the ministry, is intended to assist innovative farmers and agro-processors who require different type of assistance not previously provided for under the traditional incentive programs of the ministry. This Agro Incentive Program facilitates the need for infrastructural and technological advancement, increased production, sustainability, resilience to climate change, and the overall enhancement of health and safety conditions. Persons can actually access those grants up to amount of $100,000. So if you know any farmers who are innovative, this is the place for them to get some assistance. The ministry continues to partner with organizations such as the Food and Agriculture Organization, ICA, the University of West Indies, the UTT, on information sharing techniques, which are subsequently communicated to our officers who incorporate those in their various training programs. Finally, the Ministry of Agriculture is committed to creating a sustainable environment that encourages long-term food security, and will continue to work closely with all stakeholders so that the agricultural sector in Trinidad and Tobago becomes a global model. I wish to congratulate the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards, organizers of today's workshop, and I wish all the participants a successful forum. Thank you again for the opportunity to present on behalf of the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries. Stay safe, everyone.
Thank you very much for those remarks, Ms. Sherlon. Next on the agenda, I will be inviting Mr. Derek Omar, CEO of CrossQ, to once again come and now give a presentation on the quality and standards in the international trade arena.
Thanks very much, Rodney. So I'll be making this presentation on behalf of CrossQ and TTBS. Can I share my screen?
Yes, it should be enabled.
All right, that's cool. You see it there, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, just for 1 second while I load up this. So a small presentation on quality and quality infrastructure. We'll first just mention.
We are actually seeing your presenter screen.
Okay, I'm not too sure then how to get rid of that presenter screen. Is it press one of these? I'm not sure. So, well, nonetheless, just focus on the one on the left-hand side, I guess. Forgot how to do it. So we'll just speak firstly about CrossQ, then we'll define quality infrastructure, the role of quality infrastructure in trade competitiveness, the role of quality infrastructure in private sector competitiveness, and then close. So CrossQ is the CARICOM Regional Organization for Standards and Quality. It is governed by a board of directors comprising the 15 CEOs of the Bureaus of Standards in the region. And there is a secretariat that performs the operational work. It's based in Barbados in that building on the right-hand side. It's a small organization where we have technical specialists, one person each in the area of standards, metrology, accreditation, conformity assessment, quality promotions. We have a couple of people who manage projects and also act as resource mobilizers who integrate and interrelate with donor agencies and partner institutions to help us do the work of building the regional quality infrastructure through the National Bureau of Standards. CrossQ functions through various special committees, all comprised of national representatives in the 15 member states. So we have regional committees on standards development, on metrology, on accreditation, on quality promotions, and persons for those committees are drawn from the Bureaus of Standards in CARICOM or experts in the national community as recommended by the Bureaus of Standards. So operationally, CrossQ is the cooperative network of the 15 national bureaus of standards of the member states of CARICOM, working towards harmonizing standards and technical regulations, ensuring transparency and stakeholder consultation in the development and promulgation of standards and technical regulations, promoting the mutual recognition of conformity assessment procedures across trading nations, such as inspections, testing, and certifications. So CrossQ is really just the cooperative network of the 15 bureaus of standards working together in standards, in metrology, in accreditation, and in conformity assessment to recognize what each country is doing so as to better facilitate trade, and then to strengthen the national quality infrastructures so that products and services leaving that country to export markets wherever they are can demonstrate and prove that they meet the quality standards of any country. So what is quality infrastructure? Quality infrastructure at the national level, at the regional level, and the international level all starts with standardization, which is a document that defines the physical, chemical, biological nature of the quality of a product and or a service. And these standards, these document standards, they tend to be voluntary in nature. However, sometimes they're made mandatory for health and safety and other reasons in a country, and then they are converted by due process into what is called a technical regulation, which is a law. Now, in defining a product or a service by its physical parameters in whatever form, it means you need to dimension those products and services, and therefore you're going to find yourself using dimensional measurement such as length, weight, volume, pressure, humidity, etc. That is called the science of metrology. So metrology has three parts to it. There's a scientific element where the bureaus have standards of measurement that are traceable to international standards, largely held in the developed world. Then the bureaus will have working standards from those scientific standards, and then those working standards they will use to calibrate equipment in your country. And that's called industrial metrology, when you use international and national working standards to calibrate equipment. Then you want to make sure that that calibration holds in the marketplace so that people don't gerrymander the system, or that the measurements are very accurate and traceable over a period of time. That's where the bureaus tend to have legal inspectors who go out to inspect equipment to make sure that what they were calibrated to holds. And metrology standards tend to be physical artifacts, such as thermometers, such as scales, and those things, as compared to document standards of quality, which are pieces of paper with specifications from the natural sciences that define the product or service. Now, having these standards, you want to make sure that they get implemented and are being used properly. And that's where the bureaus have a service called inspection, in that they have inspectors who go and check documents, perform visual inspections, perform performance testing inspections, and then they generally pop in and out of the marketplace, which is called market surveillance. So these inspectors test these products and services visually or otherwise against the metrology standards and the document standards of quality. Then what they do is sometimes under performance testing, they will send these products and services to laboratories for testing to see the results. And once they meet the quality standards, they issue certificates. And certification can apply to products and services, as we were speaking about, but certification can also apply to the company's productive systems, environmental systems, health and safety systems, etc., meeting international standards. And bureaus could therefore certify those companies that they meet these international system standards. And in the process, the bureaus can also certify that persons have the requisite skill and knowledge to conduct the work that they're supposed to be doing in accordance with standards. So in that cycle, you have quality infrastructure developing from document standards to metrology artifact standards, and then inspection, testing, and certification against those standards. And inspection, testing, and certification is collectively called conformity assessment or quality assurance. Now, if all these elements form the police force that monitors quality, the question is, well, who is monitoring the police to make sure that the systems and processes of standards, metrology, inspection, testing, and certification are themselves being done to international standards that exist worldwide? And that's where an entity enters the equation called an accreditation body, who ensure and who can accredit by certification the entities of standards, metrology, inspection, testing, and certification, that they are actually performing their work in accordance with international standards and therefore make them equivalent to the results and the processes coming out from other such institutions in other parts of the world. Finally, and very importantly for the developing world, we focus on quality promotions as another element of quality infrastructure. And that's because we see the need not only to supply quality infrastructure, but to also create a demand for quality and to help our people recognize that what they do, they are worth quality and therefore they should demand quality, because when they do demand quality from their products, then industry has to step up. And when industry steps up, the supply chain for standards, metrology, inspection, testing, certification will step up. And in that way, our nation states will become more competitive on the global arena. Now, quality infrastructure has a number of roles, but two major roles are trade competitiveness as well as quality competitiveness. In regards to trade competitiveness, quality infrastructure assists firms to access international markets through overcoming technical barriers to trade. It helps the company meet consumer requirements of the importing market, ensuring that imports and also ensuring that imports into the region are safe. Quality infrastructure, as well as being implemented through the bureaus and other certification bodies, and in this particular case in Trinidad, Chemistry, Food and Drug Division, as well as aspects of the Ministry of Agriculture, can be resourced to help build their capacity to provide standards, metrology, accreditation, and conformity assessment services. So in this way, quality infrastructure can exist and support both the export potential of the country, as well as ensure that the domestic market is protected from production within it, as well as imports. A case example of quality infrastructure at work in exports is that a few years ago, sources from the CARICOM region were denied entry into the European market for the presence of a banned additive or chemical. The sources were returned based on non-compliance to standard and testing requirements of the importing country. And the importing country was very puzzled because, as far as they're concerned, their primary ingredients were all meeting the requirements of the EU regulations. However, when the exporting country had to perform the analytical tests, and they did it at accredited institutions, both in the region and outside the region, they realized that a particular secondary ingredient that was coming into the exporting country to be part of the production process was actually coming with the banned additive. And they were only able to track that through accredited testing facilities. And therefore, by rectifying that problem, by switching the source of supply of that secondary material, the products then returned to a normative basis of meeting the standards in a European country, and exports continued. Now, a case example of quality infrastructure at works was the case of the recent cessation of corned beef imported by CARICOM member states due to suspected poor hygiene practices in the production processes of the exporting nations. In this case, a lot of conformity assessment procedures comprising inspection, testing, and certification had to be carried out under accreditation bodies' watchful eyes to ensure that the exporting countries were indeed conducting the inspection and testing of the beef to international standards. And when that problem was rectified, then we could say that we had a good integrity of the product and therefore exports continued. Now, another major role of quality infrastructure relevant to this session today is the role of quality infrastructure in private sector competitiveness. In this case, quality infrastructure helps firms use quality as a sustainable business enabling strategy. For example, when firms implement and are certified by the Bureau against ISO 9001 management system standards or the 14001 suite of management system standards or the 22001 food safety management system standards, etc., then you are sure that the production processes of these firms either meeting international quality management system standards or environmental management system standards or food safety management system standards and even energy management system standards. And this helps to ensure cost-effective production, as well as ensure the health and safety of the employees working in these environments. And it will also ensure that the products that you specify that comes out of these processes are actually meeting that quality. Additionally, quality infrastructure helps firms use quality as a sustainable business strategy itself. In that when you put standards and proper measurement systems and inspections and certification services into your company and you embed it there, it will help you to consistently differentiate your products, services, and people from competitors. In this way, quality and quality infrastructure becomes a sustainable business strategy in its own right. So with that, we try to give you an overview of how quality infrastructure operates nationally, regionally, and internationally to show you that they all linked. They have the same elements. It's just the degree to which they are applied. And the most important degree of application is really at the national level. That's where it all begins. And CrossQ's job is to really get the bureaus to coordinate their work so that they could share resources and work to fill consumer demands in any member state. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Omar. You actually covered most of my presentation for later on, so thanks again for that. Less work for me. Next, and moving on, in the agenda, we have a presentation on the importance of quality to agriculture. And this will be given by Ms. Neela Maharaj, who is currently the Acting Director of the Agricultural Planning Division at the Ministry of Agriculture, Lands and Fisheries. She holds a BSc degree in Sociology and Economics from the University of the West Indies. Ms. Maharaj has extensive training in policy development and the project cycle management, both from the Arthur Luckjack Global School of Business and the Inter-American Development Bank. She joined the ministry in 1998 and worked alongside her colleagues in development of several policies relating to the agricultural sector. Ms. Maharaj also represented the government at several regional and international conferences on agriculture and food safety matters. Welcome, Ms. Maharaj.
Thank you, Mr. Ramnath. And just like you, Mr. Omar has said most of what I wanted to share, but I will continue anyway. With respect to quality infrastructure for the agricultural sector. And I wanted to first say that we live in a world where people are very conscious of our body health, their well-being, and what they put into their bodies. And with quality infrastructure, we could ensure our consumers that the produce that are made by our farmers are up to standard, that it has met at least some minimum level of quality that is required. So consumers would have a level of confidence to purchase from our local producers as opposed to our imported produce, sorry. In addition, our agro-processors will have a level of confidence that will allow them to purchase from our farmers the goods that could be substituted. So having quality infrastructure will help in increasing our revenues. It will help in increasing local production. Not only that, but it will also assist farmers in fetching a better price for their producer. There's a system already in place where farmers, rice farmers, are paid a guaranteed price paid on the quality or the grades of the rice produced. And grade 1 fetches a higher price than a grade 3. With the same thought and idea in mind, if our farmers could produce a product that meets some minimum standard, they could get a better price for their producer. In addition to that, farmers will be able to export their produce both at the regional and international market. With regards to our milk products, we already see our international chain paying bonuses for milk that contains little or no antibiotics in their milk products. If it tests positive, they get less. So here is another area in which we could see that our standards could assist our milk producers. It will also assist in trade. The United States has a Food Safety Modernization Act. If our consumers could be accredited and tested by a body or agency that could say, well, yes, here our product meets a minimum standard, we will be able to enter our markets. That will allow us to earn a higher foreign exchange. By having our agricultural products accredited and certified will also demonstrate that our products meet certain rules and procedures. It guarantees that both producers employ a practice that has resulted in a wholesome and healthy products. By having our products certified, ensure that buyers and the suppliers that complies with certain standards, which might be more convincing that if the supplier itself provides an assurance, then the goods would be able to stand the rigors of any test. For example, the ministry has, through the NAMDEFCO, its Good Agricultural Practice Program. If our farmers can meet these standards, we can say, yes, we have our products. But of course, we need to have these things certified, right? And consumers would have more confidence in a product that might be certified, right? The other point that I wanted to raise to is with respect to our fishermen and our poultry processor that was mentioned by the PS, that we need to get these people at a standard where they know that their product is safe and it is healthy and doesn't carry any disease at all. For example, our poultry industry. Over the years, we have been trying to get our poultry processors to, when the poultry is slaughtered, that to put it in cold. But our population thinks that if you have a hot product, it is equivalent to fresh. So we try to convince them that that is not the case and that what we really need is to have them follow best practice and best standards. Now, this could only be done through some form of testing, and the ministry is working towards getting our fisher folks as well as our poultry processor to go along this way. And I know we are pressed for time, so the last point that I wanted to make with regard to our consumers, that we need also to make our consumers aware of what we are purchasing and what they should look for in a product that is sold on the market. And the ministry, together with the Ministry of Health and our developmental partners, are working together to ensure that we have a program that ensures safe and healthy food for Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Maharaj. So the next presentation will be given by myself, and it's going to be a presentation on the National Quality Infrastructure as well as the national quality policy in Trinidad and Tobago. So just to reintroduce myself, my name is Rodney Ramnath. I am the manager of the certification division at the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards. I have a BSc degree in industrial engineering, as well as an MSc in project management from the University of the Western Indies. I also have 15 years experience in quality management, auditing and certifications in various industries, including engineering, manufacturing, construction, and minerals. And I am registered as a principal auditor by the International Register of Certified Auditors, also known as IRCE. Outside of the field of quality management, I also have training in environmental management systems, as well as HACCP, also known as Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Points. As the head of the certification division, I represent TTBS in matters related to certification at the regional and international levels, which is based both at CROSQ and the International Standards Organization, ISO. So let me start my presentation. Give me a moment. Okay, are you all seeing my presentation? Alicia, are you seeing it?
Yes, Rodney.
Thank you. All right, so we will be talking about the national quality infrastructure and the national quality policy. Mr. Omar has basically set the framework for what a national quality infrastructure is, and he has done it, if I may say so, quite beautifully. So we won't be going into it in as much detail as he did, but we will recap some of the major issues, because as you know, the development of knowledge comes through a process of repetition and reiteration of facts. Okay, so first of all, let's start with what is the national quality infrastructure? And again, just as a reminder, so the national quality infrastructure is the system needed to support and enhance the quality, safety, and environmental soundness of goods, services, and processes. It can actually be thought of as all of those things that work together to ensure the quality of goods and services. Included in the national quality infrastructure are organizations such as public and private sector organizations, together with their policies, relevant legal and regulatory frameworks, and various practices, which we will touch on in the next slide. So, to reiterate what Mr. Omar had said, the quality infrastructure has several key building blocks. Among these building blocks are number one, standardization, which is really and truly the determination of requirements that will be applicable to any product, service, process, system, person, or even measuring equipment. Next, we have metrology, and to summarize, metrology is the science of measurement and includes activities to ensure that measurements and measuring instruments are accurate. Next, we have accreditation, which is the activity of ensuring that conformity assessment bodies are competent and perform assessments in an impartial manner. And related to that, we have, last but not least, conformity assessment. And conformity assessment includes the activities of inspection, testing, certification, and, depending on who you ask, market surveillance. Some persons say that market surveillance is a conformity assessment activity, And some persons say that's a separate activity. But for the purposes of this discussion, we will put it in there with conformity assessment. So why is this national quality infrastructure needed? Well, it provides the mechanism to assess the quality and conformity of products, services, processes, and systems. In order to demonstrate that any of those things are of an acceptable quality, we first need to have a defined set of requirements, which we will have in our standard, and then assess those things in various ways, which would be the conformity assessment activities, inspection, testing, and certification, including market surveillance. It also assists with the effective operation of domestic industries and markets, because in order to have effective operations in domestic industries, we need to know that the quality of supplies are of an appropriate quality, and that the products that we give to domestic customers are of an appropriate quality. And the recognition of the national quality infrastructure enables access to foreign markets. What that means is that if my testing, inspection, and certification services are recognized internationally through the process of accreditation, then that means if I test something here in Trinidad and Tobago, technically, we would be able to send it to another country, and those test reports, inspection reports, and certificates would be accepted. So what's the role of a quality policy in all of this? Countries have increasingly developed quality policies as a means to reform, consolidate, refine, and maintain an effective and efficient quality infrastructure. And this reference is coming from the United Nations Industrial Development Organization. So also in Trinidad and Tobago, we have developed a national quality policy. You can see that the policy was developed in November 2017, and it covers the period 2018 to 2030. So we've covered these first 2 points. What I should add is that when the policy was developed, it would have taken into consideration the national development, the sustainable development goals, of the United Nations. So the policy is a government instrument that sets out the objectives and strategies of the country regarding how we develop and use the national quality infrastructure to satisfy the economic and societal needs. The implementation of the policy is being led by the cabinet-appointed National Quality Council, which is chaired by the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Trade and Industry. So the vision of the national quality policy is to have a strong national quality culture in support of a diversified and competitive economy, which contributes to sustainable development and the well-being of the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, as well as improve both the individual and societal state of well-being continuously through strengthening of the national quality infrastructure. The stakeholder groups that the policy is intended to affect, address, help, etc., are seen on the screen. And you can see there we have businesses, employees, consumers, policymakers, government bodies, and quality assessment bodies. As indicated before, the implementation of the policy is being led by the National Quality Council. So we'll just take a brief look at their roles and responsibilities. Number one, serving as champions for the national quality policy. Number two, facilitating coordination of NQI activities to ensure their effectiveness as well as promoting and supporting cooperation between ministries and agencies in the execution of the approved projects. Next, prioritizing projects as well as recommending the development and implementation of additional projects. Identifying mechanisms to ensure that the national quality infrastructure, entitles, and programs are adequately resourced. And last but not least, encouraging ministries and agencies to be included in the required budgetary provisions. So the national quality policy follows a structure around 4 components, and we will be talking about each of these in turn. So number 1 is governance and institution building. Under this particular section, we have projects to build high-level governance entities, and this includes projects such as the establishment of the National Quality Council, which has already been done. And also, we are currently engaged in a project to establish the Trinidad and Tobago Accreditation Service for Conformity Assessment Body, which is basically a long name to say a national accreditation body for Trinidad and Tobago. Number 2, in this section, we have regulatory reform and policy integration. And under this area, we have projects associated with the revision of acts and regulations. We are currently looking at the potential of revising the Standards Act and regulations. And in the future, we will also be looking at the possibility of developing a National Quality Act. Under the area of physical infrastructure, capacity building, and organizational strengthening, we have projects which include assessing the needs of the sectors undertaking specialized training. So examples of this are the Caladina project for the cocoa industry, which is currently taking place. And basically, Caladina is a value chain analysis of quality infrastructure gaps and the needs of the industry. Caladina is an amalgamation of 2 words in Spanish, which basically relate to quality and value chains. We also have a project to develop a national laboratory policy. We have a project which is currently ongoing for the accreditation of public laboratories. And we have a project for metrology and testing lab capacity development. Under the next section, which is enabling a quality culture and proactive environment, we have projects promoting a quality culture, principles, and practices. And in that, we will be looking at the agriculture and agro-processing industry. The National Quality Policy also includes a communication plan. And in the communication plan, we have increased stakeholder awareness and education of the National Quality Policy and the quality infrastructure. Sorry about that. Improve the understanding and use of quality infrastructure, receive communication of the quality infrastructure needs, and in doing all of those things, we will be using various mechanisms for communication, which are listed here on this slide, such as meetings and consultations, social media, electronic media, workshops, and videos. In regards to financing of these activities, because these activities do take financial resources in order to implement them, we have the Public Sector Investment Program. We have donor funding, which is being provided by the European Union through the CDB. And we have support from complementary projects, such as the 11th European Development Fund. And that basically brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you all very much. So I will stop sharing now, and we will move straight into the next presentation, which will be on the contextual framework of the forum and summary of key issues in agriculture. And that will be done by Ms. Julie Ann Laudat, who is the manager and owner of JAL Training and Consultancy Services, a freelance consultant whose main area of work is food safety training for food service providers from 2011 to the present. Ms. Laudat completed a diploma in agriculture at the Eastern Caribbean Institute for Agriculture and Forestry in Trinidad. She also completed a Bachelor of Science degree in agriculture at the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine campus, and a Master of Science degree in agriculture diversification for food sciences at the UWI St. Augustine as well. Ms. Laudat's training and work experience are focused in the agri-food industry, and she has been training persons in food safety for 14 years. Taking a proactive approach to food safety is the mantra of the company. JAL Training and Consultancy Services is a micro-enterprise providing food safety training services to food service providers and hotels. Also separate training, food safety training for maintenance staff, restaurants, supermarkets, agro-processors, caterers, and general food service catering companies. Keeping food safe along the whole food value chain. JL Training and Consultancy Services also provide training in safe pesticide use and integrated pest management to producers who wish to become GAP farmers. And GAP, for those who don't know, stands for Good Agricultural Practices, as well as general advisory services to food producers and agro-processors. The focus is on training in food safety, such as introduction to HACCP, which stands for Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Points, Serve Safe, and basic safe food handling practices. So welcome, Ms. Laudat, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Rodney. The Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Trade, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture, Director of Agriculture, CEO of TTBS, CEO of CrossQ, ladies and gentlemen all. I am very pleased to be able to facilitate the sessions to follow in this National Dialogue Forum. And so I will just give a brief context of what happens next after this opening ceremony, as well as to put the whole program for the project into some context. Let me just share my screen. All right. So as you know, we are under the 11th EDF, and Sabine and Mr. Derek would have spoken on this. So I will just go straight into the dialogue forum. So as the forum unfolds, the opening ceremony is not where it started. It actually started some months ago, where the concept note for agriculture was developed. And one of the main aims of this was to understand the challenges facing the agriculture sector, so that as we develop the programs for this national forum, we can have those before us to guide our discussions and deliberation. And I must say the PS and the Director of Agriculture did a very good job at synthesizing some of those challenges so that we can all have it before us as we go into the technical sessions later. So through discussions and meeting with TTBS and various partners and stakeholders in the sector, we were able to hash out the concept note as well as plan for this event. one of the major things that happened was training in Mural, which is a software that we will use for the technical sessions to get the activities that we need conducted. So session 1, which we have today as the opening ceremony, is actually just part of 4 sessions in this dialogue forum. And so this opening ceremony would have had within it the presentations on quality, international standards, and the various other remarks as we have had here so far this morning. And then closing that out, we will then go into technical session 2. And session 2, which originally was a closed session, but because we haven't had the numbers that we anticipated to make it worthwhile, we're opening up the invitation for persons here in this opening ceremony to join that closed session that will happen this afternoon from 1 to 3, and then another session tomorrow from 9 until 11. So the link for that session 2 has been posted in the Zoom chat here. And so interested persons are encouraged to please sign up, register, and join the activity. So what will happen in the technical session this afternoon is that we will break into groups on the crops, livestock, aquaculture, and ornamentals. And then these groups will have some tasks to do in terms of identifying some of the challenges facing the sector, as well as proposing some solutions to these challenges. Session 3, which will happen tomorrow morning, and again, we're inviting persons to register for that. We will continue to work with the groups that started this afternoon, where we will hash out some solutions for the challenges identified in the sector and come up with a national action plan for improving quality infrastructure in the agriculture sector. At the end of that session tomorrow morning, will be developed the action plan, which will then be presented to the closing session tomorrow afternoon at 1 p.m., where the work of the groups will then be brought into a session such as this. It will be presented, we can have some discussions on it, fine tune it some more, and then we close out the dialogue forum. So that in essence is what this whole thing is. And the opening ceremony is just the start of some of the work to be done. And then once that action plan is developed, it is expected that the country will implement that action plan going forward. So what we would have is some of the activities that will be needed to solve the problems identified, some expected outputs, some deadlines, and we're hoping that we can pick some low-hanging fruit and have deadlines available within the next 12 months. Then we would list, of course, the responsible institutions, budget, and any other information that is necessary to implement the action plan. And of course, as I mentioned, we close it all out tomorrow afternoon, with the endorsement of the action plan and the formation of the implementation committee. Now that committee could be a committee that already exists. I just heard that you have a National Quality Council from Mr. Ramnath. Possibly it could subsume some of this role, or a technical subcommittee under that could be developed, or any other committees that the TTBS already have in place. They could possibly look to take on that implementation of the activity. So there isn't no need for something new if there is already something in place that could take on the oversight of this action plan. And so we just want to, keep everything tight, create as much synergies as we can, and make the process flow as best as we can. I thank you very much. And if there are any questions, I imagine they will open up the floor for that now.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lodat. So as we move on, we are basically coming to the end of the program. What I would like to do at this point is remind our attendees that we will be continuing later today at 1 p.m. There's going to be the first technical session. And then after today, that will be from 1 to 3:30 p.m. And then after today, we will be continuing on Thursday morning when we will have the second technical session from 9 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. And then we will have our closing on Thursday afternoon from 1 to 2:30 p.m. So I would just invite our attendees here at the opening session. If you haven't already done so, please register for those sessions. The technical sessions are actually the place where the majority of the work is going to be done. And coming out of those technical sessions, we will be reviewing the needs of the industry, the state of the quality infrastructure, gaps that exist, and what needs to happen to close some of those gaps. So that's where the real contributions will really take place in these sessions. So we do invite you to come in and join for those sessions. Felicia, before we move on, do we need to take another picture or are we okay?
Do we have Miss Shulan and Miss Mirage here? I think those were the only other persons who were not at the initial session. Okay, well, we can continue with the program, Rodney.
Okay. Thanks very much, Felicia. So last but not least, we are going to have our vote of thanks, and that will be done by none other than Ms. Felicia Thomas, who is the National Project Coordinator for this project, but she also is the person in charge of all projects here at the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards. So handing over to you, Thomas.
Okay, thank you, Rodney. So okay, so as we seek to close this morning's opening ceremony, I would firstly like to thank our major sponsor, CrossQ, for making this event and this overall project possible. I would also like to thank the permanent secretaries in the Ministries of Agriculture and Trade and Industry for taking their valuable time to be with us here this morning, as well as the members of staff of the Ministry of Trade and Industry, Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries, NAMDEVCO, Inter-American Institute for Cooperation on Agriculture, and the Chemistry, Food and Drugs Division, who have supported us in this project. And of course, I wish to thank our consulting team, Julianne Laudat and Alexis Valky, for being here today to impart their specialist knowledge and expertise on the topic areas of national quality and agriculture. I would also like to thank you, all of you participants, for your interest shown in attending this highly valuable session. I envisage that the workshop this afternoon and on Thursday will expose you further to quality concepts, which will enable businesses, potential and existing exporters to derive optimal benefits from international trade with the knowledge gained on trade policy and agreements and the envisaged enabling environment and frameworks that is expected from the implementation of the draft National Action Plan that will be developed. I would also like to thank the members of our internal project team here at TTBS for the hard work that they have put into making this day and subsequent stakeholder engagements possible. I also do hope that the time spent here will be very much worthwhile and could translate to tangible gains in your organization's operations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Thomas. Just to let the group know, we didn't see any recorded questions on the chat. So that's just to advise you all. And in ending, have a good day, everyone, and be safe. So we will see you all for the next session. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Randy sent out a list of people with like only 19 or something. So